Now, to our first conversation, well, it's election season, and for the next president of Nigeria, one of the key decisions he must be certain about is what to do with Nigeria's massive debt and debt service burden. That's both local and foreign. This is one major issue you must think about before casting your vote come Saturday. Let's talk to Professor Olabisi Akinkugbe, Professor of Law and at the Mullich School of Law and co-convener, African Sovereign Debt Justice Network. Join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, obviously, this debt issue is staring us right in the face right now, and most of the candidates have made campaign promises from economic growth, lifting Nigerians out of poverty, and a host of other promises. But going by our bond performance recently, we've seen Nigeria's dollar bonds have declined about 6.8% over the past month. So it's looking like investors are not buying these promises. How are you seeing it?
Well, thank you very much. I guess on the one hand, the way to start this is to say it is not unusual in an election year for there to be slow rate in terms of movement in foreign direct investments generally towards the host state. So Nigeria will not be in a peculiar situation in that context. But the more immediate reason that one can think about is not also far away from the ongoing challenges that we're facing with respect to what's going on in Russia, to what is going on around the world post-pandemic. But most immediately is the fact that a lot of what we're seeing is also a question of Nigeria's current economic challenges. And this, as you have said at the top of it, has a lot of roots in its own debt challenges.
And obviously, it's no easy task there. From the last report we got, the next president is going to inherit about 77 trillion naira in debts. That's information from the DMO. And I'm wondering, how hard is it going to be for the next CEO of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It's a tough task. Indeed, Nigeria's debt profile since the turn to this new republic in 1999 has consistently, maybe say with a period of 3 years where we had debt forgiveness, has consistently been on the rise. The latest DMO report as per last quarter in 2022 indeed indicated that at least 80% of our loan debt is being used to service the debt that we have. So that means there's a huge challenge with the government, the next president, in terms of how they're going to turn around Nigeria's debt profile, particularly with respect to how principal amounts sought, on the one hand from debt and loans from external and domestic sources, are used to finance significant projects that can really move the country forward as opposed to servicing the debts. Closely associated with that is how the CEO, indeed, as you said, will try to trim down, if not completely eliminate, the bogus debt profile. They have all made promises towards that. We'll see what it will be like.
And how painful do you think the process will be to actually trim down, most of these expenses?
Oh, I think Nigerians are going to feel it. It is the reality as we look at the economies around the world today. I'm speaking to you from Halifax, where the inflation rate is going high consistently since January. So one of the candidates, for example, has indicated quite clearly that the subsidy on petroleum is going to be removed as a way to go forward. Nigerians are going to feel that. So there's no gainsaying that we have to be prepared to pay the price for this as a people. It is the reason Nigerians should indeed be concerned about each candidate's approach to dealing with this debt issue.
And what would you say is a realistic time frame to see some, positive impact on our debt level, says the next, president takes over? What kind of time frame should we be looking at? And what indicators should we also be looking at to see, oh, okay, we're starting to see action And what kind of action should be taken immediately, hitting the ground?
So in terms of timeline, there's no quick fire solution to this. I think Nigerians will demand of their next president immediate, relief in terms of high costs of food, access to health care, and questions around national security. Those are indeed, everyday issues that the high debt profile and its servicing rate has denied governments, even at the subnational level, I'm talking about the states now, the capacity to really deliver on. So that is one hand that, one cannot say within a year or a year and a half, we will see this starting to slow down. But the other part of it is that it's not enough for government to say until they solve the issue of debt, they won't be able to deliver. They are voted into offices for a limited period of time, and it means they want to do their best to quickly ameliorate the hardship that the people are feeling. And so issues surrounding, queues for fuel, how to imagine more consistent power supply, and most importantly, I think, as I've said, high cost of food is one that pinches every Nigerian in the pockets, whether rich, whether poor. And so you would hope that there'll be policies that'll be geared towards, ameliorating these, in terms of value chain supply and capitalizing on the local suppliers and not just looking at the outside suppliers.
And obviously, we see what's happening with our neighbors, Ghana, with their whole, debt situation right now. We've seen them talk about restructuring. The bondholders have complained. And looking at our situation, do you think the next CEO should just hit the road running with restructuring our debt?
That's a very good question. And I think we have to give Ghana the credit when they started their own pushback against what the IMF is doing, as suggested in terms of how to go about this. The question of restructuring loan debts is one piece of the puzzle that has to be dealt with. Fundamentally, our next president has to think about their engagement, the modus operandi of their engagement with the international financial institution, the architecture that comprises of the loan structure, whether it's the context of private creditors, whether it's in the context of loans from the Chinese government, whether it's in the context of loans from international banks, such as the IMF and the World Bank, has to be looked at most seriously to think about, number one, issues that put Nigerians' interest, policies rather, that put Nigerians' interest at the forefront. And so there's a big opportunity here to start to renegotiate the terms of engagement for the new president that Nigeria will have.
And obviously, restructuring is definitely going to cost us something. What do you think, or how big do you think this cost is going to be?
Well, to put an amount to it is I think one I want to do here necessarily. But if we go by the current restructuring plans that is going on in other parts of Africa, then it's a long road because none of the structures that have been put in place by the IMF has really delivered for African governments. If you look at what's going on in Zambia, for example, then you look like one may also almost say the future is bleak in that regard. But it's not a reason not to try. Governments in Nigeria in the past have attempted, and successfully at that, to try their best to restructure our loans and even move for cancellation in that regard as well. One key area that could really be enforced is the surcharges, right, that are levied on this loan. There are specific actions that are taken by the IMF, particularly now, that really makes the repayment of the loans, the terms on which they are secured, very difficult for countries such as Nigeria to pay. And so I think in restructuring, that is one solution, but in also being transparent with the status of our debt profile, as I said a short while ago, as it relates to private creditors, as it relates to the Chinese government, and as it relates to all other financial institutions, is one huge way to move forward with dealing with this. We have to add the domestic lenders to that as well.
All right, looking at the economy right now, can you identify, some achievements, with this present debt level that we have now?
It is tough to do. It is tough to do. Numbers do not suggest that there should be a positive outlook cast on the immediate past. If what the report of the Debt Management Office is anything to go by, then it looks like it's not been a very encouraging period. The loan profile has increased steadily. The debt service rate has increased steadily. The implication of that is that government has little fiscal policy room to really do anything that matters for the Nigerian people. So in terms of scaling it, I think it's not an easy one to say. That the government has really had to deal with significant challenges in COVID-19, the drop in the cost of crude oil, challenges associated with really maximizing Nigeria's capacity to export. It's OPEC given crude oil quota. But all of those, are important factors that I think has to be looked at in terms of the next administration as well. So that in the context of this particular outgoing government, the rise in the debt profile is a challenge that is going to be confronted seriously by the next government.
And if the next government, the incoming government, is going to also go for more loans, would that make any sense at all?
Loans are not bad. Debts are not bad. Governments around the world finance their activities through debt. The challenge is what we do with them. Do we have in place judicious mechanism to monitor these loans? Are we ensuring that the loans are not, siphoned into some corrupt means? Are we going to monitor the projects for which they have been used? Are we going to, most importantly, get loans to really deliver on significant infrastructure projects, significant job-creating projects that will have meaningful impact for Nigerian lives? Those are the real questions. And apart from that, then you have to think about what are the terms on which they are being gotten. Are they transparent enough? We're thinking about the Chinese loans. Do we know about the private creditors that are giving loans to Nigeria? Those are the key questions. So loans and debts in themselves are the norm of today's economy. The key question are what are the policies that are being put in place and how are we implementing those policies to ensure that the reasons for which the loans are procured are really being met.
And we've definitely had that debate, about Nigeria having a revenue problem. Some say it's not a revenue problem, that it's a spending problem. What do you think the next government can do to generate more revenue? Because with this level of debt, I want to believe if we get more revenue, we'll be able to take care of it easier.
Well, certainly. I think you have hit on one very important point. We can generate more revenue. Illicit financial flows going out of Nigeria is a huge challenge. A lot of the opportunity governments have in Nigeria to diversify the economy has not been embraced wholeheartedly. At the end of the day, we continue to turn around to the crude oil, which is subject to a lot of fluctuations. So diversification of the economy is critical to generating more revenue. Number two, we have to find ways to stop illicit financial flows, by which I mean, the way in which, ill-gotten, resources are just easily moved out of the country must be stemmed from its source. This way, at least in these two areas, we will see that we're able to really move back the drawing board and then start thinking about ways in which our revenue can be increased. Of course, tax is there, but that's one that will be felt by the everyday Nigerian if that is the way to go. But it doesn't exclude it from happening in terms of expensive resources that are being imported into the country that makes it really difficult for local producers of commodity resources to thrive. For example, is one area the government must look at seriously. So, thinking about those 3 points, I think is a huge one if the government thinks about them. And to recap, these are diversify the economy to ensure that we tap into today's economy and not rely on crude. Number two is to stem the outflow of funds from Nigeria in illicit ways. And number three is to think about how to utilize taxation in a way that really delivers and encourages local manufacturers.
All right. Well, I guess one good news is that we got that report that oil production is inching back up closer to that 1.8 million barrels per day. So that's some good news. And I guess I'll take all of that as your advice for the next CEO of Nigeria.
I think you're right. You know, we have to look on the positives here, and Nigeria has a lot of it in store.
All right. Well, I know you won't be voting from over there. No diaspora voting. So wish us luck, I guess.
Oh, well, I wish Nigeria, my dear country, the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Olabisi Akinfugbe, the co-convener, African Sovereign Debt Justice Network. It was great having your perspective today.